Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to have Ron of Chiseled Face with me here today. Hi, Ron.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing great. And this is hopefully the first of many artisan interviews that I will be doing on this channel. And to bring the viewers in a little bit on the context of this, I always said to Ron that if I ever started doing interviews on my channel, that he would be the first person that I talked to. So I'm staying true with my word, and I'm glad that Ron is here to talk with me. So,
I- I'm very honored. Thank you.
and can you give us a brief story about the wallpaper? You don't have to quite go into all the details, but it is quite the view.
Yeah, it's a hand-painted mural that the previous owners put there. It's kind of tacky in my opinion, so I figured I'd throw a banner up over it to cover some of it. But yeah, this place used to be a tanning salon, and the paint jobs in numerous rooms were rather odd.
And what's the eye in your chiseled? Is that a
It's
razor
like a
handle?
wood chisel. It's a wood chisel.
It's a wood chisel. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
It if you're not looking at it too right on, you could think it's like a almost like a cut in the paper, and that would be kind of cool too.
yeah, I could see that.
Awesome. Well, we'll start with kind of the easy, more open-ended questions, and then I hope as we go on, we can get more specific. Let's just go back to the beginning. What were you doing when you started your brand? Where were you living? Why did you start your brand? Just give us a general kind of history.
So when I started, I was living in Southern California working for an electrical contractor. And I started off largely because I found the chemistry of soap making interesting, and largely because I'd been working for several years on making perfumes that suited me because most of the stuff in the store wasn't to my taste.
Sure.
So I did that back in 2014, opened a website, and didn't figure it was going to go anywhere. The products I offered were absolutely horrible. I had dollar store mugs filled with the most basic coconut oil soaps possible. And yeah, it was horrible, but there wasn't a lot of artisans back then.
Uh-huh.
So it still took off.
So I'm curious about this dollar store mug thing, as in you sold soap like you could buy soap way back in the day where it was a puck inside of a mug and you bought it all in one piece kind of thing?
No, so John from LA Shaving, he went on Badger and Blade and made the famous post that kickstarted a lot of the artisans back in 2014.
Right.
So I just followed that recipe. I
Uh-huh.
followed that recipe. I had a hot process soap that I scooped into these really cheesy dollar store mugs that had mustaches on them. And I scented them with nothing but wintergreen essential oil. Really horrible product. These days, you could never get away with it. But yeah, that's what I started with. And then on the side of that, the scents that I made myself, I put in just melt and pour base
Uh-huh.
that you can get off of like Brambleberry or any other soap making store. And I made those, sliced them into little pucks, and wrapped them in coffee filters and taped with Scotch tape, label on there. And yeah, yeah, they sold. It was weird.
What a time to be getting into soap making. Thank you for mentioning that LA shaving soap recipe post. I'm saying this so that I will remember to include a link to that post um, in the description of this video. That's a fascinating look at the history of this hobby, and I feel like a lot of newer people don't know
Yeah, there's a
how.
lot of artisans that wouldn't exist if it hadn't been for that post.
Right, right. I took me years in this hobby to be linked to that post, and actually, it may have been
Mhm.
you that sent it to me. But that's a fascinating lineage. You know, how many people came out of that specific
Right.
post, right? For the brands, I'm curious. Can you talk about Groomatorium versus Chiseled Face? Which one came first? What are the current differences in those two brands?
So Chiseled Face I started in 2014. That was the OG. That's what I started as. Groomatorium I started when I had a brick and mortar shop in California in 2017. So I kind of kept it around so that there was a central location. Some of my customers complained since I run a couple of different brands that they had to pay shipping twice.
Mm,
So that's just kind of at this point, it's the consolidation point for the different brands. If somebody wants to just go one place and see everything I offer, then Groomatorium. Do need
mhm.
to list my razors there yet, though. But Groomatorium is there, and that has everything that I offer. Whereas the different brands that I offer have specific niches where I tend to get more repeat customers. If they like a particular product, they just stick with that website because it's less confusing if you've got 20 things to look through rather than 500.
Right. And I'll give my personal anecdote, which is I was amazed to find out a few years ago all of the different items that you sell on the Groomatorium website, because I think I had only ever looked at the Chiseled Face website.
Right.
And so I had no idea how many more products you offered on the other one. So, um,
Exactly. It's not exactly efficient for my operational standpoint, but I think it's a bit better for the customers.
sure, sure. And going back to the Los Angeles thing, can you talk about the other brands that you own and now manufacture?
So I find it sad when an artisan's been around for a while and they close shop because they always have a fan base that likes that particular product, whether or not it's objectively better. We could argue all day about that.
Hmm.
But once you get used to using a certain product, it gets to the point where you develop muscle memory and that product works the best for you, regardless of if it's even good in the first place. I mean, there's
Mm.
hundreds of people that still like Williams mug soap, even though it's an objectively terrible soap. But with their muscle memory, they can probably get it to lather better than any soap that
Mm.
they aren't used to. So yeah, I tried rescuing Tiki brands, but sadly they had closed doors for too long, so it wasn't possible to revive. So I did run Tiki for a while,
Hmm.
um, but I do currently run LA Shaving Soap Company. John was tired of it. There's not a lot of money in soap making, so it was always a side. Well, it wasn't always. He started doing it full time, but it ended up being a side project for him that didn't pay enough
Mm.
per hour that he put into it for it to be worth it. So for a while, I developed that for him on a kind of a white label basis. I made it and paid him per soap that I sold.
Uh,
And eventually, he was just like, or actually, I think I approached him and said, "Hey, look, at this is not a lot of money, and it's quite a bit of time tracking how many soaps are sold each month.
hmm.
How about I just buy you out outright for the royalties you'd get for 3 or 4 years?"
Right.
And he was agreeable, so I picked it up. I really didn't want LA Shaving to close because I think that John was the best natural perfumer that I've experienced. Possibly there's better in the perfume world,
Hmm.
but in soaping at least, I've never smelled scents that are better uh, for those that want to stay completely natural. So I took the brand over so that it wouldn't disappear.
Right. And for those newer people who may not be familiar with that brand, my understanding is that they've always been a vegan soap base and the scents are
Yes,
always only essential oils. Is that right?
essential oils and extracts. So
And
there's
extracts.
some tinctures like where you take orange peel and soak it in alcohol
Oh,
and use that as a scent. But
wow.
it's 100% natural. There's no perfume oils.
Got it. Okay. So so tiki is no longer being made.
Tiki is gone. No, it's
Okay.
I made my last batch of tiki probably 2 years ago.
Wow. All right. It's funny, it doesn't feel that way to me because I still see people using those soaps from probably 2, 3, 4 years ago, right?
I still have a couple of them on my shelf for sale at Groomatorium, but yeah, they're done. They're done.
Got
The,
it.
the sales volume was so incredibly low that it just wasn't worth having them on the shelf.
Sure. And so no other brands that you make besides those two at the moment?
No, that's it.
Okay. Got
Oh,
it.
actually, hang on. So Stubble Buster.
Ah, right,
Stubble
right.
Buster is a bit of a experiment that I tried. I was trying to make a really, really low dollar soap,
Hmm.
and it ended up that in order to hit the price that I needed to hit, the scent levels were too low for most customers.
Mm,
So I'm currently working on rebranding it and not rebranding it so much as I'm going to focus on Amazon customers rather than direct customers
uh,
because I think they're more suited to the Amazon market than to the hobbyist market, since they're all just straight frag tubes.
Right, right. Let's do a couple fun short ones, and we'll get back into the um, longer ones. Favorite color?
Blue. I'm
Good.
always wearing a blue shirt. This is the shirt that I wear pretty much every day of the week, all year round.
And I must say that I think you're a smart person for doing that. I I'll give my short tidbit here, which is that most men look objectively good in that color blue, and it's kind of
It's a
hard to
classic color for a reason.
you can't mess it up. So nice. And blue is also mine as I sit here in my blue shirt. Um, I asked everyone at Maggard what they thought about Tabac, so I have to ask you that too.
Ooh, that's a question. Ah, it's a scent. It's definitely an experience. It really smells horrible the first time you smell it, but the more you use it, the better it gets, which I don't know if that's a good thing.
We're
But no, I prefer to stay away from it. But it was
sure.
definitely an experience the first time I tried it. I was like, how does anyone use it? And then using it more times, I was like, it's actually not that bad once you get over the initial hit of grandma floral purse. It's weird, but yeah, I'm not sure where they get the name Tabac from, because it doesn't smell like any tobacco I've ever smelled.
I don't know if I truly accept this, but I've been told that it's not supposed to be tobacco leaf, it's supposed to be tobacco flower.
I grew up around tobacco fields. There's that old Stomp and Tom Connor song called Tilsonburg.
Okay.
It's all about tobacco farms, and I grew up about 20 minutes away from Tilsonburg, so I smelled a lot of tobacco flowers, and it doesn't smell like that either to me. But you know, maybe it smelled that way 120, 200 years ago, whenever they made that. I don't
Right, right.
different variety.
Sure. It is a little bit misleading, and I like asking about that soap because it's not just like a lemon soap,
No,
everyone has.
it's complex, and once you get into the complexities, I mean, I haven't used it in years, so I can't get into them. But there's some interesting notes in there that once you get over the initial overwhelming wave of horror, it's actually not bad.
Right, right. Awesome. I have a similar experience. I think I developed Stockholm syndrome with it. I used it
Yeah.
consistently for weeks and weeks, and now I find myself craving the scent even, which is a little scary.
I mean, it's a classic, so there must be a reason
That's right, classic for a
somehow.
reason. There you go. You mentioned it briefly in one of your answers, but I wanted to ask you to elaborate a little more about. Could you talk about your move from California to Ohio?
That one's really simple. It was just way too expensive in California. My storefront that I rented there. That's yeah, it's interesting. The storefront that I rented there was an old bank, and I always seem to get myself in these weirdest places. It was an
Uh-huh.
old bank with a massive safe, which was fascinating. The door weighed probably 2 tons,
Ooh,
but the rent on that place was $6,500 a month, and then the utilities were between they averaged about $1,500 a month. The whole front of it was glass, so the sun would beat in there. And with the thermostat set at 80, 82, the air conditioner bill was still at about $1,200 to $1,400 a month.
oh my goodness.
So it was, yeah, it just wasn't sustainable. I mean, I did get some walk-in traffic there, but not sufficient to offset the ridiculously high cost. Whereas the place I'm in now here, it's a it was a mansion. Now it's separated into a triplex.
Uh-huh.
So I live in one portion, and my two renters covered the entire mortgage payment.
Right,
So then I'm just responsible for the utilities, which are still high because it's an old, poorly insulated building.
right.
But I'm paying utilities for, well, the entire triplex, and the upkeep, which is also expensive, but
Hmm.
still doesn't hold a candle to, you know, just shy of $8,000 a month in California.
No, it's just no comparison. We were talking a moment before we clicked the record button about how affordable many parts of the Midwest are, and
It's
you know,
amazing. I mean, there's a reason people don't want to live here. There's not a lot to do if you don't have sufficient of your own hobbies to keep you busy. Thankfully, I'm constantly busy, so it doesn't make that much of a difference to me. But California, I had 150 restaurants within a 10-minute drive. It was crazy. Anything you wanted to do, skiing was half an hour away, surfing was half an hour away. Everything was right there. I miss California, but honestly,
Mm,
I'm too busy right now to enjoy it anyway. So might as
sure.
well live where it's cheap.
Definitely. And you mentioned it briefly, and that was going to be one of the fun questions I was going to ask you is any hobbies that you like that you'd care to share with the viewers?
I used to be a huge, like massively into collecting antique Victorian books, like
Huh.
just ridiculously into it. I've not really had time for books recently. So I've mostly been focusing on machining, which is work and a hobby all wrapped up in one.
Right, right. I was going to ask you about the machining aspect of things, and then some people had some specific questions. So, what I have listed here is in all caps, chiseled face, legacy razor, exclamation point. It's a really great thing. And stop me if I say anything wrong, but you first started off in titanium, you now have brass, and you just
Mhm.
hinted that you're making a prototype aluminum. Am I correct so far?
Yes, aluminum and stainless are both coming soon. Aluminum first, because it's just easier to make.
Right.
So I'm making aluminum ones. I've got two prototypes in my hand. I actually shaved with one this morning. Oddly enough, I thought it would shave exactly the same. It
Okay.
doesn't. It
Oh.
shaves more like a gem razor. It's super loud, like one of the loudest razors I've ever used.
Hmm.
But it still gives the same finish. Like the shave is still as smooth and close as the titanium,
Mm-hmm.
but just while you're shaving, it feels different, possibly due to lack of weight or maybe the natural resonance of the metal.
Hmm.
I honestly don't know, but it's quite a different experience, which I wouldn't have thought.
That would be a fascinating thing to try because when I tried the titanium version of your razor, I was definitely
Mm,
in the school of you have to hold it very flat, which is
yep.
which definitely made me think of a gem. And so if you could combine the kind of angle with the sound, I
The
think you
sound
might.
is there. It's
Uh-huh.
loud.
I mean, I think you would have a certainly there's a group of people that would
It,
like
it,
that.
it would be a niche.
Right. A niche within a niche within a niche, right?
Yes.
Um, so someone asked if you had any plans to make the razor in copper.
I am open to it. I have not yet, but I wouldn't be against it.
I mean, you still have two metals that are in the queue, right? So,
Right.
um,
It just gets to the point where, especially with stuff like brass and copper, unless you sell it pre-distressed, pre-patinaed, the upkeep of just having them on the shelf is high. Like
right.
the brass razors, I've got to repolish them before I ship them every time because they just sitting on the shelf, especially in Ohio where it's humid,
Mm-hmm.
they patina really quickly. And I also have to package them using gloves because otherwise there's going to be brown spots by the time it gets to the customer where my
Mm.
fingers were. So that's my only drawback of copper. It also has that, but if I sold it pre-patinaed, like aged it a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
that might work. So that was my drawback of copper. I didn't really want the maintenance of maintaining the inventory.
No, right. And once again, I think there is a niche of people who love to force patina, brass and bronze and
Mm-hmm.
copper and things like that. I think I'm kind of an easy example in that I don't really care about patina on razors. I just let it
Right,
happen, and then one day I decide, okay, this is enough, and then I figure out how to polish it. But I'm not really high maintenance when it comes to that stuff.
right.
But I've heard from you and I've heard from other people just about how difficult it can be to maintain, the polish on like a brass
It's tough.
razor, you know.
Even if you polish it perfectly, you handle it with gloves when you put it into the container. You come back a month later and it's going to be considerably darker. And so then, like sometimes you make your handles at one point and you make your heads at a different point. then they don't match.
Right.
So you've got to repolish them right before you ship them. Otherwise, you have a mismatched looking assembly, and it's a lot of work.
Hmm. Got it. It's good to hear that you're thinking about doing stainless. Someone was asking specifically if you might offer the bird cage handle in stainless.
It's unlikely. So I'm a beginning machinist. Um, it takes me, I can do complex things, but it takes me forever. So I
Mm,
had a buddy of mine that works in the medical industry program for the bird cage because that's beyond my abilities at this point. I mean, I could probably do it, but it would take so incredibly long that it wouldn't be worth it.
sure.
So I had a buddy of mine in the medical industry design that one for me. And he's really, really busy. Not design it, but program it with the machines. He's really busy, and I don't see him having the time to be able to redo that program for something other than brass in the near future. If he ever does have time, absolutely. Or, a couple years down the road when I have more hours behind my belt, um, possibly then too. But at the moment, it's going to be brass only, possibly aluminum. But we tried making it titanium,
Hmm.
and the program didn't work for that. We changed it for titanium, but we kept on breaking bits, and it was just too costly, the amount of bits that we broke, to be able to do it.
So it sounds to me like you're generally pretty open-minded about offering, each part in as many different metals as you can, but you have to, of course, test it first, and you're not going to fully manufacture it if it's going to be too costly. Is that fair to say?
Pretty much, yes. I mean, case in point, the banana scent. I hate banana with a passion. I hate every time we make a batch of it. But whenever I stop making it, I get so many emails that it's like, okay, if you want it, I don't have to shave with it. I'll make it.
So talk more about that banana scent because clearly some people just absolutely love it, but you hate it. I have people that are very close to me and my family that hate that scent. So can you just talk about that a little more?
So banana was never my idea. Um, some user on Reddit contacted me and said, "Could you make a banana scent?" And at the time, I had probably 4 cents or something. So I was like, "Doesn't sound hard. Sure, why not?" So I made it, and the smell when it gets hot is overwhelming. I mean, just imagine being trapped in a hot car with, about 45 dozen bananas. It's unpleasant. It's overwhelming. It's not fun. However, I discontinued it, and I continued getting emails saying, "Hey, where'd banana go? Where'd banana go?" So I don't know why people like it, but it's definitely a lot better out of the jar than while you're making it.
Right, right. Well, I've been happily surprised to find out that we are on the same page when it comes to several things.
Nobody should buy banana. Nobody should. I want to stop making it, but I mean, as long as people buy it, I won't.
That's right. And some people would say this is your marketing technique, that you if by you saying don't buy it, it will cause more people to buy it.
I'm really bad at marketing. That's what I struggle with the most in my business. I'm horrible at marketing. No, I honestly hate banana, and I honestly don't think anybody should ever buy it. But glad they do.
You are on record in the year 2023 as saying that no one should buy this. So that's good.
And almost every year previous to that.
Good. You're up to date. That's so
We'll have to
funny.
circle back again next year and reconfirm that. Just, YouTube short. Banana's still terrible.
Do it. Great. That'd be fantastic content for your shorts part of your channel. You have a YouTube channel, right? Where you've done a couple shaving videos, you show off some products, right?
I do. It's very, very basic at this point. I think maybe there's 4 or 5 videos, but it's something that I'm definitely working on expanding on. My goal for the rest of this year, I mean, anybody that's seen my socials knows that I post and then I'm radio silent for 6 months.
Hmm.
So my goal for the rest of this year is to put some kind of post out there, regardless of how mundane, every day. So
Oh,
whether it's
okay.
YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, somewhere, something, I've got to create some kind of content. More as an exercise for me, I often get hamstrung by perfection. I want it to be so nice that it doesn't get done. Like this razor,
Mm.
for instance, I've been working on it for about 6 years now.
Oh, wow.
So, well, not 6 years now, 8 years now, 6 years before I made my first razor. I designed it, I 3D printed it, I redesigned it, I 3D printed it, went back and forth, 3D printed it in metal, got it back. It was a long process. And
Huh.
really, I would have been the first razor I made was, again, I'm super biased. So, but the first razor I made was already on par with 95% of the razors on the market. I should have released it.
Mm,
But instead, I just drug it out to the point where now there's so much competition that it's really tough breaking into the razor market. So I'm trying to get over my perfectionism and put out products that I know are good without agonizing over the last 1%.
right, right. I hope that that goes well for you when you do decide to post something every day. I had a friend who did that. I guess it was last year, and I know that he learned a lot by doing it. So,
And that's the thing. I don't know if it's going to be good for the channel. And at this point, it's so small that it doesn't really matter. But it'll be good for me to at least learn how to, take a product shot and take all of my marketing is suffering. So just
mm,
repetition of doing it will help me get better product photos and better product videos and just help me be comfortable about talking about my own stuff, which sometimes seems like you're tooting your own horn, but in order to pay the bills, you kind of have to.
absolutely. It's just it's the way the world works. I mean, it has for a long time, but somehow because of this technology and social media, it feels overly so. But um, you got to do what you got to do, right?
Got to pay the bills
I
somehow.
mean, you got a razor and you got banana and you got LA Shaving Company and you got Midnight Stag, you just got all this different stuff and somehow you are the person that connects all the dots. Um,
Midnight Stag was actually my first scent.
great.
Well,
And
kind of, sort of. Redneck was my first scent,
oh,
which then got renamed to Gearhead due to some customer complaints.
yes.
And then I was like, this is really not a scent that anybody should wear. It's interesting, but it's more of a concept fragrance rather than a actual wearable fragrance that I made Stag to flesh it out a bit, which
Got
some
it.
people would still say nobody should wear, but I like it.
Right. And someone wanted me to ask how it feels to have these cults of followers, like for example, the Knights of Stag, is that what they're called?
That was a very surprising development, and oddly enough, I need to do a full month of shave with Stag too, so I can be inducted in the Ancient Order of the Knights of Stag, I think it's called. That's really awesome. It's an honor, but it's really hilarious at the same time, which was the whole intent of it.
And that's the thing, right? Is you have to use it for the month. It doesn't matter if you're Ron of Chiseled Face, and it doesn't matter if you're
Mm-hmm.
somebody totally new to this way of shaving. You have to commit that time to using it to get in the club.
And I believe there's even one or two women in the club, which
Oh,
to me is
wow.
fascinating. I actually have a couple of women that use it as a daily, not a daily cologne, but a special
Special.
as a certain occasion cologne.
Okay. Okay.
So there is a niche of women that like it too. It's not everyone says it's ultra masculine. I mean,
Right.
traditionally it would definitely be called that, but it doesn't mean that just men use it.
Got it. I guess this brings us to my final question for you, which can be as short or as long of an answer as you'd like. This is again something I asked all of the people at Magrid, so I wanted to give you the chance to answer it, which is what's your favorite part about the shaving community?
That's always there's a lot of good facets of it, but without the shaving community, I would have never gotten started in the first place. When I got started, there was so much support that my products were trash. That they were not good. It was something that I really didn't intend to sell. I just kind of wanted to learn how to set up a store, how to make some soap, how to make some fragrances, and I put it together and I sold it. And without the words of support that I got, which I shouldn't have got in the first place because the product really didn't deserve it, I probably would have just quit and made my own personal product. But the support I got and the encouragement and the hey, this is different than what anybody else has done, even though it was different in not a great way, it still was, they're like, hey, this is something new, go for it. And without that, I would have wrapped up before I ever even really got started.
Hmm.
So yeah, just the support. of the shaving community is it's wonderful.
Well, and that's very nice that even now you can reflect on the early days and think of those people that were very kind to you, right?
Yes, very much so. It's definitely didn't deserve it at that point. Hopefully, my products have grown to the point where I do now. But yeah, it was really quite something to see.
We've covered so many years, so many facets in this short time. This was everything I hoped it would be, and that I'm just barely hanging on to each little comment, and going from one to the next. And I hope it makes sense to everybody out there. I'm mentioning this. I will need to seriously ask you for all of your links that I should share, because I know you have so many for each business, and I almost forgot about your YouTube channel. So I'm going to send you a message after this to please give me all of the links that you'd like me to post in this video.
Fair enough, will do, and I'm diligently working on updating them. Some of them have been sadly neglected, so
Sure.
hopefully there'll be some new stuff coming out from me soon.
Fantastic. Well, we've been talking here with Ron of Chiseled Face. He's got lots of products to look out. So I hope that you will go and look at as many links, find something that seems interesting to you. And I'm thrilled to hear about these new parts of the legacy razor that you'll be releasing, things about Stubble Buster. Seems like you have really a lot of things going on over there. So
Always keep them busy, and really appreciate your time.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Ron. Hope to talk to you again in the future. Thanks to everybody for watching. Like I said, hopefully this is the first of many. So take care, and please leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Goodbye.